The Phileas Club is made possible by you, the listeners. If you think the show is kind of cool or interesting or informative, please consider giving a little bit of money at patreon.com/the Phileas Club. Thank you very, very, very much to those who already do. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Phileas Club. This is episode 117, and we talk about Brazil. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Phileas Club. This is a show where we get people from different countries from around the world together and discuss what's been happening in what's been making the news. That's what we usually do, but we also have another type of episodes where we talk with one person specifically about what's happening in their country or how things are going in general, how things go in their country or in their culture and things like that. Today, I'm very glad to be welcoming someone who has been on the show before and who is going to be talking to us about what the hell is happening in Brazil. Guilherme, how are you doing? Oh, by the way, my name is Patrick Beja. I'm very glad to be welcoming everyone. Hey, Guilherme, how's it going?
Hi, Patrick. Oh, things are not going as well as I hoped they would, but we'll make it through.
So I think everyone has heard about the election of, I don't want to mispronounce his name, Jair Bolsonaro?
It's Jair
Okay.
Bolsonaro.
Jair Bolsonaro.
Yeah.
Is that a proper
Yeah.
Brazilian Portuguese accent?
Yeah.
So okay, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to what has led to the situation the country is in right now, how the election went, that it seemed to be a little bit crazy, and what you think is going to be happening in the next few weeks or months. But first, for people who want a little bit of context about you, could you tell us about yourself before we get started?
Sure. I'm 26 years old. I'm from Brazil. I work with publicity. Okay, so internet publicity in general.
So marketing and
Yeah,
things
marketing.
like that,
Yes. I also have a podcast, but it is in Portuguese, and we deal with struggles of life, like depression and that kind of thing. I never was actually really politicized as a teenager or even in my early adult years, but these last 4 years in Brazil have been so crazy that if you don't understand what's going on, you were kind of a freak.
Mm.
So I started learning a little bit more about politics in this last 4 years, not just by listening to the news, but understanding our history, okay? Understanding the Brazilian political history of the last, 30 years or so that we can properly understand what's going on now and what's going to be our future, actually.
So would you say this is a common theme among Brazilian people? Did people get thrown into having to know about politics, or is this specific to you?
No, it's getting every day a lot more common. Because, well, then I'll have to get a little more into the topic of the show today.
Sure. Well, okay. Before we do that, as
Sure.
a clueless foreigner, I'm looking at this situation, and a lot of what we're hearing is Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro? I can't get
Bolsonaro, yes, that's
Bolsonaro.
right. Yeah.
I can't get the inflection right. It really annoys me because I really try to get the pronunciations right in any language I'm speaking, but sometimes I can't.
Sure.
So the things we're hearing from the outside is, of course, the comparisons with Trump, but also the fact that this is happening in many, many different countries. The rise of a strong man, to keep things simple, a strong man in the country that is going to fix stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go into specific, just for people who have heard that, how accurate is that description? The comparison with Trump. How accurate would you say it is, without judging the whether this is a good or a bad thing?
Sure. If you would ask me this question before he got elected, I would say that it's not as accurate as the world is showing it to be. But from last week until now, from the day he was elected until now, he's getting every time closer and closer to what Donald Trump was when he got elected, and he keeps on being until this day. So yeah, it's now it's pretty accurate. Before, not that much.
So how was he different before, and how is he more alike now?
Okay, I think the biggest difference between Donald Trump and Jair Bolsonaro is that Donald Trump is an entrepreneur, okay? He is a businessman. And Jair Bolsonaro is a military man. So he's from the military. He has, I think, over 30 years record with the military. So the pitch that he had before he was elected was that he was going to fix Brazil by militarizing everyone and by making Brazil its own country, and he was not as focused on the businessmen of the country as I think, at least from what I saw from the American elections here in Brazil, as Trump was. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah. I think certainly. I think Trump was talking about immigration and a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
But there's an aspect of the economy he was talking about, and getting people their jobs back, and that was part of the narrative for sure.
Yeah, but there's a big difference between the part of the jobs the part that getting people's jobs back that Donald Trump used to say, and what Bolsonaro says. The way that Bolsonaro says is like, it's not that everyone will get a job, it's not that everyone will have a job, but you have to fight hard, and as soon as you're done fighting hard, you get the job that you deserve. Okay, so it's not that I'm gonna make it's not that I'm going to make some kind of new law, new legislation that will make sure that you have a job, that you're entitled to a job. Just that, okay, you want a job, you got to work for that job.
So how is this? Maybe we need to get into, I guess before we get into the situation, before I have another question, is he, when I hear comparisons to Trump, I hear outrageous statements on Twitter and taking your communication in your own hands and making so much noise and saying such outrageous things that everyone listens to you. Is that a technique that he's using?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that's the point that I wanted to get. When I said it, it was, if you ask me before he was elected, it was not that equal to Trump, but now that it is. Now, as soon as he got elected, he started even to tweet the same way that Donald Trump does. Like the same exclamation points, the same kind of, mannerisms that Trump has. He didn't have that before, but now he has.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll get back to that. But
sure.
let's get into the situation, because if you ask me what Brazil is like, I kind of get an image of something between Colombia with the drug trade and kidnappings of rich people and rich Westerners and people living in gated communities that have armed guards. This is the image that comes to my mind, and I don't know how accurate it is. So if we want to, and if this is the situation in the country and no one has managed to fix it for a long time, I kind of understand how someone would want a strong person to come in and say, okay, party's over, enough with the BS. Now we're going to be doing things my way. So
yeah.
Yeah, what's been happening in the past,
Um,
I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years in Brazil that led to the situation now?
okay, so this vision that you have from Brazil, it was accurate between the end of the 90s and beginning of the 2000s. It was extremely dangerous to go outside. Kidnappings happening all the time, drug trafficking really strong, but things changed a little. Okay, Brazil's still a very insecure country. It is still a very poor country, but there are many very, very rich people who live here. There are many places in the country that's not as bad as you would think they are. But the biggest thing that made people want to change wasn't even all those kind of stereotypes, was the corruption part. Okay,
Mm.
so people were kind of done with corruption. So that you understand, in the 70s until mid 80s, we had a really big dictatorship. Okay, a military dictatorship. And from then on, now that we are a republic, we have an elected president and everything. People thought that everything would change to the better before after the dictatorship. Things changed in the beginning of the 90s, then late 90s, early 2000s. Things got started to get really insecure. Corruption deals starting to explode everywhere. Every kind of politician, they were labeled as corrupt, even if they didn't do anything. They were, if you saw a politician on the news, you were sure that they were caught in some kind of corruption deal, corruption scheme. And then in 2002, the Workers' Party, they got into power. Okay. The Presidente Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, he was the very
So
first. Sure.
he's called, essentially, we call him Lula everywhere else, I
Yeah. Oh,
think. Yeah.
nice. Perfect. So Lula was elected president, and he had some. He was really populist. Okay, the Workers' Party is a left-wing democratic socialist political party here, and it was the very first time that a left-wing party really had the control over the country. So he made a lot of good things to the people. He made a lot of how can I say it?
Like he made decisions that benefited the people, and
Yeah, the people,
addressing,
especially poor people,
right.
especially people from parts of the country where they didn't even have like sanitation or electric power or internet or things like that. He was really good with that part. But then in the meantime, every kind of corruption scheme exploded, completely exploded after 2004, 2006, and the Workers' Party were still in power. So I'm gonna fast forward a little bit to 2013. Okay, our president of the time was Dilma Rousseff, who also was from the Workers' Party, and she accompanied Lula throughout all of his mandate, so throughout the time he was president, and now she was president. And then, have you guys heard about the June journeys that happened here in Brazil in 2013?
The what? Sorry, no, I don't think so.
The June journeys. They were one of the big. They were actually at the time they were the biggest public demonstrations of unsatisfaction that Brazil had, like
Mm.
since the 80s, since the early 90s. And it all started because we were going to the tax that you paid so that you can ride a bus, they were going it up by 20 cents, and people got really crazy about it. And
How much?
those
Just so we know, 20 cents. How much
okay,
does that
oh, 20
represent?
cents. um in dollars it would be around 5 cents,
Okay,
5 cents dollars.
and
Okay.
that was a significant increase.
Yes, it was a
Okay,
significant increase because
what percentage of the price of the ticket would you say it
was
was?
around I'm making the count actually. It was around 15%
Okay,
increase.
all right.
The thing is, it would be those 15% extra would be explained if we got like better buses, better driveways, like
Mm.
some of those things. But that just didn't happen. They were increasing the taxes just because they wanted, increasing the fare, actually, the fare price, just because they wanted. They thought it was something right to do. So people got really angry, and then the 2013 protests, they began. They began with this speech. Okay, they began with they didn't want that 15% extra cost in their fare passage price. But then it escalated to, okay, we don't want corruption anymore. We are fighting against police brutality. We are fighting against the system so that we can live better. Okay?
Okay, that seems reasonable until now.
Yeah. That's what happened in 2013. So the fare did not increase that year, actually. It remained the price it was, but in 2014 it actually did. And then in 2014 we have the biggest corruption investigation we've ever had here in Brazil, which is Operation Car Wash. You heard about it?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Okay. Operation Car Wash started in 2014, and it was initially just a money laundering investigation, which became the biggest investigation against corruption in Brazil. It was this operation that got Lula arrested, actually, and it showed that our situation was a lot worse than we even imagined. Even us Brazilians, that we knew that there was like this big corruption schemes happening every day, every time that you would think about a politician, someone would be involved with this. But it was a lot bigger. It went all the way to the president of the time. It was a really big shock to everyone, because everyone thought that, okay, corruption happens, but on a minor scale. There's some senators, some ministries, that kind of thing, not the president himself. So,
was Dilma Rousseff also involved in that corruption scandal?
Yes, she covered it up.
Okay, so we get into a situation. When was that conclusion to the investigation? When was that?
It's not over yet.
But when did the country realize that the president was involved and Lula was involved and Rousseff covered it up?
It was in 2014 still.
Okay.
That's when they asked for Lula to be arrested and to Dilma to be impeached.
That seems like a pretty bad place to be in. But okay, I'll let you continue. But this is kind of, I get that people are sick of it, but keep going, and we'll see how it goes.
I'm talking about all these things so that you can understand why he was elected today. Because
sorry. Actually, I also have another question. When we're talking about corruption scandals, what kind of corruption are we talking about? Like attributing construction contracts to a specific company for kickbacks, or what kind of thing are we talking about?
Yes, that's around 80% of it.
Okay.
Construction schemes, like they had these 3 or 4 construction companies that would do every single construction, like public construction in every single city in the whole country. Petrobras,
the company.
Heard of it? Yeah, the company that makes oil. Yeah. So Petrobras was a big player in these corruption schemes, because the president at the time, the Petrobras president at the time, he was involved with the corruptions. They were raising the gas price so that they could make more profit out of it, but not clean money. They're laundering money through every single gas cell that they made, actually. And that just blew up completely.
And that was like the money laundering was the president, Lula, was aware of this as well?
Yes.
Oh my
God. He was involved in it, actually. He was involved with money laundering.
Just to keep things coherent, this is the great people's hope, Lula, who was elected the first left-wing president. Like, you find out that not only it's not like, he has a mistress on the side, or he pocketed $10,000 through, for appearing and speaking to one person, to like at a convention or something when he shouldn't have. This is the like hardcore corruption. It's really bad corruption. Okay.
Yes, really hardcore corruption. And from then on, this big feeling grew inside of every single Brazilian to hate the Workers' Party. Okay, so as soon as 2014, 2015, every single Brazilian hated the Workers' Party. And, they had motive, because ever since they were elected, they were making corruption schemes. They were inside every single corruption scheme that had happened in the last 16, 18 years. And then if we move a little forward to 2015 and 2016, that's when another big riot happened, and the Brazilians asked for Dilma to be impeached. And they got it. They got it, and her vice president, Michel Temer, was the new president, and he is until this day. Okay?
All right.
Now, 2 to 3 years later, we can see that it was actually a coup from her vice president, from Michel Temer, so that he would become president.
Oh, how do we see that?
Because some things don't add up. Okay. Michel Temer, he used to say a lot of things. This is a lot more complicated than I can actually explain, but I'll try to sum it up easier.
Well, the important thing, I'll let you keep going, but the important thing is that this is now the sentiment in the population, or the common understanding in the population, that Michel Temer actually created the situation, or encouraged the situation, to get Dilma Rousseff ousted.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. He made a lot of. He's really good at lobbying. Okay. So when it came down to the voting, the senators voting if she was going to be impeached or not, he was back there, like, without anyone seeing, he was making deals. So, if you vote for her to be impeached, I'll help you, I'll help your company, I'll help everything. Okay, then she was impeached, and Michel Temer became the president. Now, fast forward to 2017. And that was the first time that every Brazilian really heard about Jair Bolsonaro. Okay, so that he was the very first time that he was actually in the media. And he's been in the government for 27 years, and he has only passed 2 bills. Okay, actually, he has not passed. He made 2 bills. He put up 2 bills for voting, and none of them passed, actually.
So what was his position in the government?
He was completely against the corruption.
Sorry. I meant what was his job? Like, was he a senator, or not a senator, but a parliamentary, or?
I'm trying to find the word in English that can actually show what he was. He was just a second. He was member of the Chamber of Deputies.
Okay, all right. So he was
Yeah.
All right.
He was a deputy.
But he was one of those people that you don't really hear about, as you said, until 2017, when he came to the forefront.
Yes. And then he actually made his name by saying those really outrageous things that you talked about. Like, he is homophobic. Okay, he hates same-sex marriage. He's completely against it. He's completely against abortion. He is completely against drug liberalization. He is 100% pro weaponizing every single citizen of the country. He wants to make Brazil a huge military country. His biggest dream is to become somewhere between what Hitler and Mussolini were, but not as bad.
Yeah,
without the killing a lot of people part, I think.
Okay, so we reached the Godwin point after 23 minutes of recording, 24. But also, Godwin point, I think, is Godwin point when we talk about things that are not, you know, political appointments and regime changes. When you're talking about these things, that's the extreme of the situation of the topic you're talking about. So I think it's a little bit more appropriate to discuss. But when you say his biggest dream is to be Hitler or Mussolini without the ethnic cleansing, what do you mean? Like, do you actually... does he say, what does he say that leads you to think he has these very strong views that the country should be ruled in that way and in a very undemocratic manner?
Mm-hmm. So he's so far right that he's getting into the realm of fascism. Okay, with his statements, with the things that he's doing. Like, one of the first things he's saying that he's going to do as soon as he becomes president on January 1st, he's going to completely he's going to absorb the workers' ministry into something else, so that every single worker in Brazil doesn't have their actual rights. He wants to militarize everything. Here in Brazil, we have two polices, okay? We have two different polices. We have the military police and we have the federal police. He wants to make that one thing only. He has those, how can I put it? He has that way of talking, like, I want every single criminal to be dead. If you don't agree with the things that I say, I'm gonna go after you. I'm gonna send people after you. I'm gonna torture you. I'm gonna kill you.
Like, literally like, talking about torturing and killing, or are you exaggerating here?
No, I'm literally talking. One of the biggest things that he has to him is that he hates African American people. Okay. And Brazil is like 60% or more, or maybe like 80% actually, African Americans.
So when you're saying, sorry, just to be clear, when you're saying African American, you're trying to find a polite way of saying black people.
Yes, precisely.
Okay. So he hates black people. It's fine. I think you can say black people.
Okay. Yes, he hates black people, and he thinks that every single black person is a criminal, and he wants to kill every single black person. He wants to kill every single homosexual. He wants to kill.
Okay. You keep saying he wants to kill them. Like, does he literally say we need to, like, get rid of the black people in the country? Like, does he literally tweet, black people need to die?
Okay, he doesn't tweet it.
Okay.
But he says things. He says it in the TV, in the news, that kind of thing. But not exactly like, I want to kill you. But he used other words. Like, there are many Brazilian ways to say that. Okay, like, if you see like this black guy in the street, go there and put a bullet in his head before he steals you. Okay.
Before he steals something from you, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So he actually says, if there's a black guy in the street, you should put a bullet in his head before he robs you. Like, that is the thing that he literally says. He says, put a bullet in his head.
Put a bullet in his head. Protect your family first. God above everything. So you have to respect God, and I'm trying to remember the exact words he had. It's like, God and family first. Everything else you can shoot first and ask questions later. That's pretty much this. If you see like a homosexual couple kissing, you are pretty much allowed to beat them because that's wrong and God doesn't want that.
Wow. Okay. So this is impressive. So we're far beyond, I think, what we're seeing in other countries. And what strikes me is that he is the and maybe we can talk about this further, but the unrest or the people being upset came from corruption,
Mm-hmm.
but this doesn't really address corruption, it seems. I'm sure he also addresses it, I'm guessing. um and
Yeah.
and it's like it's not even beyond the corruption, it's like something completely different that he embodies. And also,
Mm-hmm.
as I said, this is like worse than anything I've heard anyone in these populist movements in the other countries, the UK, the US, like they
Yeah.
wouldn't go that far.
No.
So,
Bolsonaro is a monster, actually. I'm trying to find some more quotes that he had in this last few years. He has 4 children, if I'm not mistaken. He said one time that he made 3 good men, 3 good boys, 3 big boys, and on the fourth one, he just let it go, and then a woman was born.
mm,
He weakened himself, and then a woman was born. He's completely against women getting the same salary, the same pay as the men, even if they do the exact same job in the exact same company. He thinks that women should get paid a lot less. Um,
so wait, again, I think this we need to contextualize this.
sure.
There are, efforts to put equal pay in the law and
Yeah.
make that respected in enforced, right?
Yeah.
It, and there are people
Not
who
here.
say no, you don't need to put it in the law, you need to make sure that people who work uh, as well, no matter what sex they are, they're paid just as well. And that's
Hmm.
what you need to make sure of, not to force. It's kind of
Yeah.
the discussion about what's the word, affirmative action, kind of. This
Hmm.
is not this is not what you're talking about, is it? He's
No.
actually saying that
No.
women
I'm
should be
talking.
paid less for the same job,
Yes.
because
Yes.
then they will go
Because.
out and make children and
Yes,
Hmm.
exactly that. Because they get pregnant, and then they get like pregnancy leave. He wants to lower actually the time that women can stay at home while still getting paid. Like the pregnancy leave today in Brazil is around 6 months. He wants it to be like 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Jeez. Okay.
Yeah, like okay, your child was born, you can stay home 2 weeks to make sure that he doesn't die, and then you gotta get back to work. And he still thinks that women should be paid less. He wants women to be paid less than men because he thinks that women do not deserve to be as, I don't know, accomplished or as, well, as respected as men should.
Okay.
Um,
Uh, all right. So let's get back
Now,
to 2017 when
yeah.
this guy shows up saying these things and he gains
Hmm.
popularity.
Yeah, he gains popularity because he says, I'm going to stop corruption. Okay,
Mm.
I am going to get rid of corruption in our country. And if you go to his, the little bill that he writes with everything he wants to do while he's president, I'm not actually sure the name of it in English.
Oh, the
It's like
program.
his,
Yeah.
it's
His
yes,
his
his
political program.
presidency program. Yes, his political program. If you go all the way down to the corruption part, it has 2 lines. It says, I will get rid of corruption and make sure that corruption never comes back again in Brazil. Never happens again in Brazil. And
Okay.
that's it. He doesn't say how. He doesn't say when he's going to start it. He doesn't say what he thinks he's going to do. Nothing. He just says that I'll get rid of corruption. And with all this, this last 16 years that the Workers' Party was in power, and everyone is really tired of it, and no one wants the Workers' Party to elect a president anymore. Everyone went on the Jair Bolsonaro bandwagon. They completely, you know, people say like, "Oh no, he's just saying those stuff to show off so that you know who he is." He's not like that. Actually, you're going to see when he's elected, he's not going to do all those things. But Actually, the biggest problem is not him actually doing those things, because I'm pretty sure that he's not going to do like this ethical cleansing of black people in Brazil and homosexuals in Brazil. But the people that elected him are, and they already are doing that. We have had multiple cases of racism, of killing of homosexuals and people that were just like hugging each other since he was elected. There was this student from one of the biggest universities here in Brazil that he made a couple videos of him like saying that, oh no, now that Jair Bolsonaro is our president, I'm going to see this black guy coming my way. I'm just waiting for some black guy to come my way so that I can shoot him. Someone with a red shirt so that I can show who's the king here, who's the boss now.
What's
I'm
the
going
red
to
shirt?
kill everyone. The red shirt, the red color is the Workers' Party color. Okay? So everyone with the red shirt is, automatically part of the Workers' Party.
Mm. And so he made that video?
Yeah, he made that video. Everyone saw it. Everyone was like completely enraged. But everyone keeps on saying, no, you're taking him out of context. You're taking our now president out of context. He's not going to do the things that he's saying. He just wanted attention.
And to be fair, when we compare that to Trump, which is the closest thing we have, Trump didn't really do most of those things that were outrageous. The things he did, I think, that will have the most effect on the U.S. is getting conservative judges elected to the Supreme Court. But he didn't build the wall. I don't think there's any, at this point, there's still no illusion that the wall is going to go up, and all of those things, as people who voted for him said, are just him being, the idiot that he is. Now, whether or not it did create a climate of increased racism and homophobia in the U.S., I think is up for debate. Arguably it did, but it didn't start the apocalypse, or if it did, it's taking a little bit of time to coalesce. and so, do you think the situation is different with Bolsonaro, or?
Okay. I think there's one key difference, which is the fact that Bolsonaro is from the military. His vice president is from the military, and we had a military dictatorship. And he has said in like interviews 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that as soon as he was elected president, he was going to bring back the dictatorship we had, the military dictatorship we have. And we are starting to see some things that are leading us to believe that may actually happen, that could happen. That's not like part of a wild dream anymore. It's something that some people actually want again.
Just to be clear, you mentioned it before, but in case people don't realize, he will actually be president on January 1st. So he is now president-elect for the next couple of months.
Yes, exactly. And I think that in the next couple of months, not much is going to change. Okay, so we are going to keep on hearing him saying those really outrageous things, the things that he wants to do, but we will actually going to see what he's going to do after he sits in that chair, after he starts working as the new president. But
so before we go into what you think is going to happen, which we did talk about a little bit, can you tell us more about the election period itself, if it's over? Sure. He showed up in 2017, started making noise, started saying all of those outrageous things, and the majority of the people wanted him to be in power. I guess, was it also a slow / semi-quick change of heart, kind of, because people were just so sick of the corruption, in the same way that in other countries they were sick about something and went to him? And so how did it go from 2017 to now?
Okay, so in 2017, no one actually believed that he would become president. It was much like Trump when he said that he wanted to be president. Everyone's like, okay, you want to be president? You are not going to be president. It was a meme, actually. We were just discussing this. I was just discussing this with my friends that he was a meme last year. No one actually gave him credit about anything because everything he used to say was completely ridiculous. Everyone looked at him and say, "Okay, dude, you want to kill every single black people, want to kill every single homosexual person, and you're not going to become president saying those things."
It's incredible how similar all of these situations are with the Brexit and Trump and all of those. It's incredible.
Exactly. It seems that everything started out as a joke that got way too deep, and now we just can't get out of it. But okay, so last year he was a meme. He was a really big meme. No one believed that he would actually become president. And then this year things started to change. The how can I say? I forgot a word.
The other candidates were crap?
No. The news were starting to show that
the polls.
People actually, the polls. Yes, I'm sorry. The polls were showing that he was steadily rising in people's minds. So he started out with like 2% of the polls, then went in like just a couple of weeks. He went to 10%. Just a couple of weeks later, he went to 50. He goes to 15%, 20%, 25%, 30% by the end of June, start of July. Then he got like all the way to 45% in September. And then people, some people started to get scared. But in the meantime, plenty of riots started to happening, a lot smaller than the ones in 2014, 2013, but riots nonetheless that asked people not to vote for him. There was like this big campaign from everyone else, everyone that did not want him to get elected.
When you say riots, I'm wondering if you mean demonstrations, because riots are actually violent. There's
violence. They're demonstrations. I'm sorry.
Okay. So when you were talking about the riots in 2013 and 14 as well, it's also demonstrations.
Those were actually some of those were actually riots.
Okay, all right. So this year it was just the demonstration from people who didn't want him to be president. Okay.
Yes, there were plenty of demonstrations happening, country around, and this big campaign from people that did not want him to be elected president because things were starting to get real. People were starting to see that, damn, he could actually become president. He'll probably have the votes he needs. And it all came down to the first election we have. We had two elections, okay? We had the first one that if he got 51% or more, he was going to be elected. He did not. He got 47%. And we
47. Geez. So this is a standard. Everyone in the world will understand this election process, except the Americans, who only have one term, and the primaries don't count. That's a completely different thing. It's just a two-turn election. If you get 51% or more than 50% of the first turn, you're elected. But that almost never happens in most democratic countries. But the second turn is just between the two people who got the biggest number on the first turn. So first turn, there might be 8, 10, 15 or more candidates, and second turn, there's only two. So at that point, one of them has to get more than 50%.
Exactly. So in the first turn, Bolsonaro got 47% of the votes, which already showed us that, there's not much place to run from now. And then Fernando Haddad, which was the Workers' Party candidate, he got into second place with like 23% of the votes, and the two of them went to the second turn. And in the second turn, it was actually a little tighter than I thought it would be. I really thought that we would see like an election with 70 to 80% of the people voting for Bolsonaro. But it was actually not that big the difference. It was 58% Bolsonaro and 42% Haddad. And he won, nonetheless. And then people started to freak out, actually, because now that he's president, he is going to do whatever he wants. He's vice president. He was like, it is Hamilton Mourão, the vice president. He is general army like for, I don't know, 40 years. For the last 40 years, he had like this really big military career, and people are scared now. Okay, so people are really, really, really getting scared of what's going to happen on the next couple of months, on the next 4 years, because things are not looking very good, especially to the minorities, but things are not looking very good to everyone. There was like this big crash on the stock market here in Brazil right the day after he was elected president. He already said that he's not going to make trade with Egypt, with China, which are our two biggest marketing,
commercial partners, trade partners, I guess.
Trade partners. He doesn't want that anymore. So things are starting to get really scary. He has this, I don't know if you know, but here in Brazil, it is prohibited to have a gun. Okay, so you cannot have a gun. Only if you practice like range shooting or something like that. And even that way, you cannot walk with your gun like on the street. Even if you have
so
a
similar to what's happening, I guess, in most countries, except the U.S.
Except, yes. Yeah, pretty much. You cannot have a gun. It's pretty much that. One of the first thing he says he's going to do is to give a gun to every single person in the country. Everyone must have a gun because people must have the right to defend themselves, the right to bear arms, to,
But is violence a problem? Because this...
It's still...
Yeah, I'm guessing there's reason for this, that he's saying this because people are getting, I don't know, attacked, or it's the rationale that, well, the bad guys have guns, so you need to be able to defend yourself, right? So how bad is the violence currently?
It has been worse, okay? It has been like in the last 10 years. In 27, it was the worst it ever got.
You mean 2007?
2007, yes, I'm sorry. In 2007 was the worst it ever got, but things are steadily going down. But Brazil's still really, really violent, especially in the northwest part of the country, and the north and northwest part of the country, they still are really violent, and in the poorer parts of the country, of each city. Like, I live in São Paulo now, which is the biggest city in the whole country, which is, I'm pretty sure that's the city everyone knows besides Rio.
Yeah.
And we have like this really rich part here in São Paulo where really rich people live, like really rich people. And then we have like normal part where normal people live. And then we have the slums, which I'm pretty sure everyone knows, that really poor people live. And the difference between like where someone really rich lives and someone really poor lives is just a wall sometimes. So people share the same neighborhood, they share the same streets, they share the same, everything. But one is really rich and the other one is really poor. Can I show you a picture actually so that I can see it better?
Sure. I mean, it's not going to be great audio podcasting, but show it to me. We'll describe
try
it.
to describe it. Yeah, just a second. I'll find it out.
And just to be, I think there's something about having the difference between classes is really important. Like, no matter what the average is in your country, I think there's always an issue when you have one part of the population which is really rich and the other part which is really poor. That's always a problem. And the picture you're showing me is quite striking. There's literally slums on one half of the picture, and then the slums stop with a thin wall, and there's a building complex that has tennis court, pool, and are those like
Yeah,
pools on each floor? Like, is this
on
each
each floor.
apartment has their
Yes,
own little pool?
little pool. Yes, and it's not as small as it actually looks. It's
Mm.
pretty big.
This is kind of
Yeah.
incredible. And I mean, so is it the poor people who voted for Bolsonaro?
So yeah, that's what's most striking because Bolsonaro hates poor people and he hates black people, and most poor people are black, and most black and poor people actually voted for him because they are tired of the Workers' Party and they want to have their guns in the right way,
Well,
so they can
it's
defend themselves from the drug dealers, from
mm,
everyone that's from everything that's happening around their own communities, their own slums.
that's it strikes me as there are two things that strike me. First, if you're living like this, how much worse can your situation be? Maybe it can be worse, but you're thinking, I'm living in a slum. Those a-holes just next door have pools on every single floor.
Hmm.
It's a giant middle finger given to all of those people.
Yeah,
I can, I
Yep.
can kind of, as much as I thought it was shooting yourself in the foot to vote for Brexit or elect Donald Trump. I thought it was, making the situation worse. Actually, it might turn out to not be that much worse in the US. We're seeing, the economy is quite steady or improving in some ways. I'm not sure Trump is responsible for it, but
Hmm.
nonetheless, it didn't tank. Um, in this case, you're like, well, I'm already eating off, trash cans.
Trash. Yeah,
And
and there's people
and
literally doing that.
and yeah, that's it. Like, this is not the fantasies of what we're hearing in uh the US or the UK. I keep taking those two examples. There could be more, but this
Hmm.
is like actually desperate situations. And when
Yeah.
we're talking about the violence, it's not like every day the illegal immigrants are coming with guns to murder your daughters and sons, like the fantasy that Trump is selling. I'm only
Yeah.
exaggerating a little bit. He's saying they're sending the rapists and the criminals and blah, blah, blah. In this
Hmm.
case, there's literally people coming with guns and violence in those parts of the country and even in some of the big cities. And the government is telling you cannot have guns to defend yourselves, right? And the
Yeah.
police isn't really doing a good job at helping you in those cases.
Yes. Hmm.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure. I'm not sure I have a conclusion out of this, but I wanted to
No,
make
no,
sure
no,
I have
no. You're
an
right.
accurate picture.
Sure, you're right. And because of that, people they want to get safer by themselves. So
Mm,
that's why, it's a great idea to have a gun, to weaponize the people. But if you give a weapon to every single Brazilian, the country isn't going to get safer. It's going to get a lot more violent,
right.
like a
Yeah, I think
lot
that's
more.
a fair expectation as well. Like
Yeah.
you essentially it's not like civil war, but it's anarchy.
No, but pretty much. Imagine if you're walking down like an alley at night, and there's this other guy just going to his house, and you're going to your house, and you know you get scared, and okay, I'm gonna shoot him first, just like my president said I shoot. I'm going to shoot him first before he mugs me. He steals something off of me, and the other guy is just like a random guy. He's not a criminal. He's just like a dad.
Mm.
It's not going to get any safer. It's going to get a lot more violent. And but people actually think that they are going to get safer, and people think that he is going to get rid of corruption, and people agree with him. He think that, well, yeah, you should shoot first. If it's your family that's in risk, okay, shoot first. Run your car over everyone that's in front of you. Do whatever you need to do to keep you safe, your family safe.
How what's your social situation? Are you in the middle class? Are you, do you know people from those poor neighborhoods, or?
Mm-hmm. Okay, my situation is a bit different. I am not in the middle class, but I'm not really rich. I live really comfortably here in Brazil. I have a really good life. But yeah, I have some friends that are really poor, some people that came from the Northwest. They came to São Paulo seeking jobs, and they live on a minimal wage, which here is around, now with the dollar and for bucks, it's around $200, okay, a month.
Mm.
But I also know people that are on the extreme rich people here in Brazil. And listening to both sides, and I can see some people that, well, they shouldn't vote for Bolsonaro because he's just going to make their lives a lot harder and a lot worse, and they are voting for him. And people that you would actually expect to vote for Bolsonaro are not. You know?
So who would
Does
you
that make
expect to
any
vote for Bolsonaro?
I would expect like those a lot older people
Right.
that have companies, people that lived in the military regime, people that you know they have the money to get out of the country if everything goes south. That kind of
So traditionally more
person,
conservative. Um,
conservative,
mm,
yes. Though that kind of
mm.
person, I think they would vote for Bolsonaro, and people that are, on their 20s, late 20s, early 30s, that are, starting their careers, that they actually need a job to keep on paying their apartments. They're starting a family, that have like this big will to do something with their lives. They are also voting for Bolsonaro when they should not, because he's not going to help them. He's
Mm.
going to make that a lot worse.
Yeah, it's a really obviously a very difficult situation. I have a hard time deciding or appraising the situation myself. Obviously, it's we've only been talking for about an hour, so I don't really know anything
Hmm.
about it. But it's very when we're talking about people feeling and the people's feelings in all over the West that we need to give a middle finger to the politicians because they always screw us. I always say, well, this is a feeling, but the reality is different.
Yeah.
In this case, the reality is dire. So I don't know that I would have made a different decision if I was in that situation. I might have said, well, everything and the thing is, everything's shit. It could be worse, but everything's
Yeah.
shit. So you're like, well, F you and whatever. So I can understand that reaction, I guess, a lot better in the situation you're describing than in the situation, in the UK where they literally shot themselves in the foot with this Brexit
Yeah.
insanity. Um, so what's
And
the situation now when we're a couple of months away from him taking power, and what are people expecting? Are people, resigned to the reality that he is going to be president? I guess there's no choice. It's the democratic process. But
yeah.
do they think, oh, we're going to have, the dictatorship is going to come back, or is that the mood? Or
Okay, so we're pretty split right now. Some people think that yes, dictatorship is going to come back with full force. We are going to get, screwed all over. We are not going to, have anywhere else to run. We are going to be completely destroyed. Brazil is going to be the next, North Korea, some people are saying. Other people are more moderate. They're saying, okay, I just hope that he makes like a good president, that he really doesn't, get all the things that he said out and he actually does them. And some people are really happy
mm,
that he is the president, and they think that he is going to make a good job. They're not hoping, they know he's going to make a good job. They know that he's going to get rid of corruption some way, somehow, that they don't even know how. But it's kind of a mixed feeling. Having lunch here in Brazil nowadays is a really weird situation because anything that you say may lead to a political conversation, and in the same table where like three friends are sitting, there will be three friends with completely different visions, and then a fight may even start.
Like it actually gets to that polarization that we're seeing in other
Yeah.
countries where people get combative, not necessarily into a fist fight, but people like.
No. Yes. Yeah.
Mm,
People are losing friendship. People are losing contact with their families because of this, because of everything that's happening. It's it's dire, as you said. It's a
mm.
really dire situation. It's a complicated situation, especially to the opposition. To the people that did not want him to become president, because now we're kind of we are the minority now, and they are the majority, and they want to take everything over. So if you say like, oh no, I did not vote for Jair Bolsonaro, I vote for Haddad, you you know you could even die sometimes. My
Seriously,
mom is that seriously. No, I'm really not joking at all. People died, people got shot, people got stabbed because they said they were not going to vote for Jair Bolsonaro. My mom is actually really scared for me to go out, go to work, go out with friends, go shopping with a red shirt because she thinks that I may get shot in the street.
you're getting me worried for you now. Don't. I guess I would tell you not to wear red shirts
Red
for a
shirts,
little
yeah.
while.
Yeah,
Do
I
you?
actually am not. I'm not
Okay.
going to wear them. I have a bunch of them. I love them, but I'm not going to wear them. Things are really, really dangerous now if you did not vote for Bolsonaro, because there are some radical. I think in every kind of situation there will be the ones that are more radical than others, the ones that's going to take matters to their hands. But you'll never know who that person is going to be. And that's why some people are scared.
Mm.
My mom
Especially.
doesn't want me to go out. My girlfriend doesn't want me to. My fiance doesn't want me to go out with red shirts. Doesn't want me talking to friends that I know voted for Bolsonaro, or people that may have voted. They were even scared for me to come in this podcast.
I'm scared for you to be on this podcast now. No, I'm not kidding. It's like
No, I know.
the safety of the people who speak to on this show is always really important to me. I'm not a newspaper of record, and I don't really
Yeah.
intend to be. I'm not putting people at risk, and now I'm actually scared. Um,
No, there's no need. I'm not going to get into any trouble for being here. I only let like a couple of people know that I would be coming here, so pretty sure people won't be able to find me that easily.
but I mean, you also, I mean, you made it clear that you don't think he's the right man for the country, but I
Yeah.
think you described the situation in a very objective and accurate way. I don't know the situation, but
Oh,
it's not like you described it as everything's great and then this dude comes along and messes up everything. You're
yeah.
acknowledging the very real issues that led to this situation. So,
hmm No, my motto coming here, the first thing that I thought when you asked me to be on the show is like, okay, so I gotta be as thorough as possible, as impartial as possible. I need to show the world, the people that are going to listen to this, exactly how things are going. I'm going to be a little bit biased. Yes, I am, but I'm trying hard not to be that much biased.
mm.
Is I don't think he should be. Okay, that's my point of view. I don't think he should have been elected. But I can see why he was, and I'm going to try to explain why he was, why people voted for him, and what people were expecting him to do.
Well, I guess now all we can do is wait, and see what actually happens in the
Yeah,
next, I don't know, 6 months to a year.
so a year. Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
I guess there is a chance that he will, that what the country needs is a strong man, and
yeah.
that he will not slip into dictatorship style government.
hmm
But I don't know. He does he address the issue of dictatorship, or does he not talk about it at all? Like, because
He's refraining from.
coming from the military, it's kind of the natural thinking that you're like, oh, he's super outspoken, and he's from the military, and so
Mhm.
yeah.
No,
What does he?
his okay. So first things first. In 1964, in Brazil, there was this military coup. That's when the military dictatorship started. Okay, so in every single school in the country, you were going to listen about the 64 coup. Okay, so it was an attack against our government
Hmm.
everywhere. You know that you've been taught that since you were a child because that's what actually happened. There are proofs of that. There are documents showing that. It's what happened. He he denies it was a coup. He says it was a revolution that Brazil needed. So he's 100% pro military dictatorship. Um, Ever since he launched his pre-candidacy, he did not get into that point, but people went through like news files and old videos of him giving interviews out, and they found an interview that he gave, I think, to MTV in 1999, that he said that the first thing that he's going to do as soon as he gets elected president was to reinstate the military dictatorship. And well, once you say that, and then years later you actually become president, people are going to get scared, or people are going to expect that because people are asking about that to him. Like news outlets are asking him about that. Like, okay, so are you actually going to do that? And he just refrains from answering the questions.
Mm.
So it's a big. No one actually knows what's going to happen. I myself hope that he does a good, that he becomes a good president, that he doesn't show off his little claws and start to, rip the country apart. But what scares me the most is not himself, okay? It's not Jair himself, not what he can do, because I'm sure there are other ways that people can stop him, but the people that elected him.
Mm.
That what scares me, because you cannot control people. You cannot control random people on the street. You cannot control random, coworkers. Those people scare me because
All
if
right.
they voted for someone that's so extreme as he is, that's themselves showing who they actually are. They
Yeah.
the things that they think that they have always think that they have always thought, but they just couldn't show it until now. Because
But
it was not
the
right.
the the situation again, it might be different, but it does remind us of um, the situation with Trump. And again, I keep
Yeah.
talking about Trump, but it's an example that is a symbol of
Uh,
things that have been happening in many different countries. But
mhm.
Trump is a lot of people. If you listen to the left, Trump is the monster that he appears to be. But a
Yeah.
lot of people on the right, and actually, sorry, let me rephrase that. The people who voted for Trump believe the things that he is stating just because he's Trump and he's an idiot and he says what gets him headlines. But if
hmm
you listen to the right, yes, I agree. Some people might be of that kind, but I honestly believe, and I might be wrong there, but I honestly believe that most of the people who voted for him are either people who wanted to, give the finger to everyone else, or
hmm
people who voted for him because they have a conservative agenda. And in practice, what's been happening for the past year is mostly, I think, things that would have happened with any conservative president. right?
Yeah.
And maybe it might
Hmm.
go a little bit farther in some cases, but not. It's not like if I don't know Ted Cruz or whichever Republican nominee had been elected. It's not like the situation would have been drastically different. So I guess the point I'm getting at is the people on the left in the US saying, oh, the people who voted for him are monsters and they want this and this and that. I think there's a little bit of exaggeration going on there. Um, couldn't that be the case as well for Brazil? Meaning, yes, there are some people who are going to pull out their gun and shoot the random black person in the street
Yeah.
because Jair told them to. But as a whole, it's people who are in a really desperate situation who wanted to give the finger to the entire rest of the country, but they're not actually going to go out and beat up homosexuals the first chance
Hmm.
they get.
Yes, no, I agree 100% with you. I'm pretty sure that most of the people that voted for him are not going to take, matters to their own hands. They are not going to go after people. They're not going to make, like a witch hunt against every single person that voted for the Workers' Party.
Mm.
But uh, actually, there was a trend that we could see, like here in Brazil, as soon as he was elected, that every day more and more and more and more violence cases are being reported. And not just because, oh, he has been elected. Okay, now we have to show, like some news outlets are going to, oh, no, I'm completely against him. I'm going to show every single case of violence that happened because of him. No, like common media that you do not expect to be politicized in any way is showing those kinds of cases
Mm.
against homosexuals, against black people, against people from other states that came to São Paulo, that went to Rio de Janeiro. Um, things are, but I'm pretty sure that in the same way that this actually happened when Trump was elected, that you had those subway videos of people saying really, really awful things to Muslim immigrants. Remember when that happened actually in
Yeah,
in,
of
in the
course, and
U.S.
it's still happening. Honestly,
It's
we're
still
getting some of
happening.
those.
Yes.
Yeah, and there was, of course, the Charlottesville white supremacist rally,
Yeah.
which was outrageous. Which, and to temper a little bit what I've been saying before, I think those people always existed, but I don't think they were as brazenly visible as they have become with
Mhm.
the rhetoric that Trump is peddling as the tool to get him visibility. So it definitely has an effect. I don't want to say or to imply that it doesn't have an effect and it's all just jokes, because I don't think that's the case. But I also don't think that all of a sudden in the US at least the entire country became racist, right? Because that's
Yeah.
not exactly accurate either.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. Brazil has always been a pretty racist country, especially with actually a pretty xenophobic country, especially with their own people, actually, people that come from different states. But I don't think that things are going to get any better, I think that they are going to remain the same as they are today, which is not an ideal situation, or they are actually
Mm.
going to get a little worse.
Okay, well,
He's
no, go ahead.
no, I don't. Just so that I can sum it all up, I don't think that he's like the devil, as some people are putting him to be, or as maybe I made you guys believe that he is. He's not the devil. He's just a person. He's going to be our president. We can expect good things to come out of him. At least that's what I hope. But we'll have to wait and see. And in the meantime, I just hope that the people that voted for him just don't go, batshit crazy.
Mm. All right. Well, I guess we'll have, as we both said, to wait and see to see
Hmm.
what happens. But at least now I understand the situation a little bit more, and I hope that the listeners have a better understanding of what happened there. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I guess, however little bit the risk for being on the show.
Yeah.
I hope things are going to be okay, at least for you. Would you do you want to tell people where they can find you on the internet? On the internet, not in real
Yeah,
life.
on the internet. Sure, you can find me at Sleipnir on Twitter without the final E. In the end, it's at SLEIPNR or at Guivas on Instagram. That's at GUIIVAZ. That's a double I there.
I'll
That's
include the link to your Twitter in the show notes, as I always do, so people can find everything from there.
sure. And if anyone has any doubts or if I didn't make myself as clear as I try to, you can send me a DM and I'll try to explain things much better. And thank you, Patrick, for having me. It's actually a great opportunity to be able to talk to you and to your listeners about what's happening here in Brazil. I'm really glad I could help you out.
I'm really glad you came on. This is definitely a situation I think most people will have heard of, but as always, it's very difficult to understand exactly what had been happening because we only hear fragments of stories. It kind of makes me think of the episode we did with Saul a year ago about Venezuela. Which it not just because it's South America, but it was a strange situation that we didn't really understand. Maybe I should try to get in touch with Saul again and get an update on what's been happening in Venezuela, which was also kind of an incredible situation. So if you're interested in that, by the way, that's the episode number 94. So you can go check that out. Episode 94 was what the hell is happening in Venezuela, and this one is going to be what the hell is happening in Brazil. Again, thank you so much for being on, and
thank you, Patrick.
I'll be following what's happening in the country now because I feel like I'm invested a little bit.
Sure.
So for me, it's Not Patrick on Twitter and on Facebook, and you can find me on Instagram as well, Not Patrick there too. You can find this show at FrenchSpin.com, and you can comment on the article for this episode. If you have things to add, questions to ask, please do so. And if you want to comment, I'm always very happy to hear what you have to say. And finally, if you think this show is interesting or valuable in any way, please consider becoming a patron. You can go to patreon.com/the Phileas Club. The link is in the show notes as well, and contribute a little bit of money to the show to help us make it. This is the only way that the show is produced and financed. So if you think it's worth it, then as the saying goes, if you get value out of it, consider giving a little bit of value back. So patreon.com/the Phileas Club. Again, for the last time, thank you very much, Guy, for being on. Thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.